The second step during our first meeting is to add the vision entries. And we do that in a visual way. Because if we were just to ask you, what are your goals and objectives, you'd probably have trouble answering that question. Most people do. So that's the reason we use the visual approach, and the reason it works is because of actually how our brains work. Your past thoughts are stored in your brain, and when they're visually stimulated, they come to life. Also, can you imagine what it would be like if I used a script and then I was to ask you, do you have a car? What about a van? What about a sports car? Do you plan to buy a motorcycle? What about a snowmobile or a boat? Airplane? It wouldn't work, and we'd miss things. When you can just visually scan, you'll recognize things. Now, as we identify the things that you want to have and do, we do want to try to stay away from quantifying them. And again, it's because of the way our brains work. Identifying vision is a creative right brain activity. Putting a cost to those visions is a left brain activity. So if we did both things at the same time, back and forth, you'd become tired, and you'd actually limit the number of vision entries that you'd make. Another advantage of this approach to traditional financial planning is that a traditional financial planner requires 2 points, a starting point and an end point, which is often made up of your goals and objectives. What happens when a couple can't agree on their goals? A financial planner would help them reconcile their differences, but that often results in a winner and a loser. And then the loser will likely start to disengage and withdraw from the planning process, and they may just totally kibosh the whole thing and just stop it. So this is how we deal with conflict goals. We just include them in the plan. So if somebody, for example, wants a motorhome in retirement, we can just add it in here. And then what we'll do, although it's in, we'll actually now come and exclude it. So it's there, and it's in the plan, but there's no financial connected to it. And then when we get together during the second meeting, we'll run 2 plans, one without the motorhome, and then one with the motorhome. And then they can decide if the motorhome makes sense when it's been incorporated into everything else that they'd like to have and do. So once we have all the vision entries, then we'll add the financial entries in much the same way. And then, of course, once that's done, we'll want to start to get some of the details in the financial information. And you can see we do collect all the information, and we consider the red dots represent the hard data and the blue the vision data. And we want to collect the vision data at this point conversationally. We'll leave the hard data for a questionnaire. Now there's 2 reasons why we want to collect the vision data conversationally. And one is it helps to make your vision entries more clear and compelling. And the other reason is vision entries will change over time. For example, let's take a look at your winter vacations. Right now we're spending about $5,000 a year. But what if at some point in time we want to spend a little bit more on vacation? And we may only do vacations for a certain length of time, and at a certain age you may stop. It's very hard to get that kind of information on a questionnaire. And often what happens if it's done on a questionnaire, we just take the $5,000 and just project it right until your life expectancy. And when we do that, sometimes that overstates the value of your investments that you have to have today or save. Now the other reason we like to get the financial information conversationally is what happens when you have the same goal, but you want to fund it differently. And education is a good example. So for example, say somebody wants to fully fund education for kids and somebody just wants the kids to contribute some, and parents would contribute some. We'll put education down twice, and then when we get together, we'll run a plan one way, where we include education, and then we'll run a plan the other way. And then you can see the difference in the context of everything else that they want to do, and they can make an informed decision. So that's the advantage of interactive planning, and this is also where we would end the first meeting.